from Ricky Taylor. We're still waiting for confirmation regarding new BMW driver in car 24, but we'll get to that just as soon as the car goes through the timing loop around the back of the paddock. It is Colton Herta, who's not in that car, is he? Yes, he is. He's in both. Yeah.
He can pick and he can choose, and my
very good.
Screen needs to update itself, so that could be confirmed. I have to go to my secondary timing screen for that now. But,
yeah, you see, the secondary timing screen I found is great for knowing immediately who's at the wheel of those cars, whereas another far more informative timing screen tends to update more infrequently, but the stuff you get from it is superb. So I'm kind of dancing between the two and enjoying it very much. 4 hours and 8 minutes to go for the 61st edition of the Rolex 24, live from Daytona. We've got flag-to-flag coverage here on RS2 IMSA Radio. It's Bruce Jones and Johnny Palmer in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. And down in the pits for us is Nick Damon.
With Marco Wittmann fresh out of the 24. Marco, a good stint, but you had some problems halfway through, lost 3 or 4 laps. What happened?
Yeah, we had a bit of a problem on the car where we had to do a power cycle during the pit stop, and then when we did the power cycle, the car did not restart, which was costing us quite a lot of time. So we had to connect the car, reset the car, and then we could go again, but obviously dropped us quite back, unfortunate. Yeah, I think we need a few more yellows to come back. Still we are fighting, we are pushing. Obviously it's not been an easy race for us. Overall, we are lacking a bit of performance. I mean, we are lacking this since the Roar. But we are trying, we are pushing, you know. I think we are the manufacturer who started the latest with that project. So I think we can still be proud that so far this one car, the 24, is running pretty much in a good shape, you know, with not many issues. And now obviously we try to finish the race. And as I said, hopefully there will be 1 or 2 full course yellows.
How do you feel that, you know, in clean air, basic pace, how do you feel your overall pace is compared to the others?
I would say in clean air we are not too bad. There's still a bit of missing to the competition. But obviously we struggle a lot under traffic when you need to dive in, when you need to break offline. That's where we are lacking pace. And this also, you know, this rules then our problems even more. So in clean air we are kind of okay-ish, but obviously with the traffic we lose even more.
Marco, hopefully you guys get to the end, and well done for this fantastic effort.
Thank you.
It really has been from BMW. I think they knew it was going to be an uphill struggle because they were the latest of the 4 manufacturers to get some testing in to develop their brand new M hybrid V8 with the 4-litre turbocharged V8, as the name of the car would suggest, from Rahel Letterman Lanigan, and it's the team that is so familiar with running BMWs, more so in their GT spec previously, GT LM, with the M8 cars, but moving forward into prototype territory, back to prototype territory for BMW, of course, after a couple of decades and a bit away. But with great success previously here in the States and also at Le Mans. Marco Wittmann wants cautions. We've only had 8 of them, and the last one was withdrawn at the 14.5-hour mark. I mean, we're closing in on 20 hours now, so 5.5 hours not without a caution to this point. And I keep readjusting my tally of hours left compared to about a 1-minute 39-second lap, and trying to work out therefore how many laps there are to go. So let's change that now to 4 hours and 4 minutes, 147 laps remaining. So we're again on target for 800 laps, but we'll have to stay green for the remaining 4 hours. Well, we've done it for the previous 4 and 5 hours, in fact, 5.5 hours in the clear. Can that be sustained?
Very good question. What you have to understand is not every commentator has the mathematical nous and the backup that Johnny has, prodigious amounts of data to be examining. Sometimes you might say a little too much. So I'll move on to another segment.
Yeah. You don't even know what the question was there, do you?
No. Because I was about to come in. I was just thinking about engine notes again. I've veered off into that. And I was thinking, gosh, you were saying it's about 20 years ago that BMW were last at the top level of the racing. Do you remember the engine note? Their magnificent V12 engine that ran in those prototypes back then. Sorry,
was it 1998 winning at Le Mans?
That sounds ish about, but hold on, I'll just double check that for you while you're looking at a lap chart. I'll go back, but you know, again, there are certain times in the cycle of racing when things are very special. 1998 it was, 25 years ago. Well done, Johnny. Winning at Le Mans, that's BMW.
But then again, our ever-expert producer for the day, Rob Lomas, has said 99.
What does he know, frankly?
What does he know? It was one of those years in the late 90s. I mean, for me, 1998 is a Ricard Rydell year, and 1999 was Laurent Aiello. But that's the British Touring Car Championship for you.
Oh, it's harder for our producer, Rob, because, of course, he wasn't born in 1998.
I think he was.
Were you?
I think he was. He was a mere year old.
OK.
Yeah. He's a 1997 kid, which was Alain Menu, of course. That's how I dictate my 90s, years of the 90s, is whoever won the BTCC. Sorry,
you don't do it on the last time that Blackpool won the FA Cup. Or Stanley Matthews. What year was that? 1953 or something like that?
Hey, you know your stuff, don't you? You've been asking a lot of Blackpool questions of late. It's because of our massive FA Cup run of one round this year.
And I know nothing about football, but certain facts slot in
good.
somehow.
Well, Hindhaugh got a Sunderland mention in during his last stint, so I think I should mention the Tangerines where possible. Lost yesterday, but there you go. And Tangerine is still resplendent in the LMP3 class, but not so much for Sean Creech Motorsport these days, sadly. They have tumbled down the order. Thomas Morel, the new race leader in LMP3 with the Duqueine D08, and it overtook, or rather was gifted, the race lead. I mean, it had been battling for it anyway, the AWA car, all race long with Sean Creech Motorsport, but that has taken matters out of Sean Creech's hands, rather, with the huge difficulties with the actuator that needed to be fixed, and exhaust gases bleeding from the wrong part of the manifold and melting wiring and such like. So an awful lot of work required on the 33. Amazingly, they got out after something like 36 minutes and are still on for a podium in the LMP3 class. But the dreams of taking a Rolex home in 2023 rather went up in smoke and melted wiring very quickly indeed. 4 hours and 1 minute to go, so that is a prime time to give you a VP Racing Fuels in-race update. 20 hours down, and it's Scott Dixon's Cadillac Racing Caddy V LMDH that leads the way after 665 laps. It has an advantage of 52 seconds over Simon Pagenaud's chasing Acura ARX 06, and the 60 car, an extended pit stop last time around. That was 10 minutes ago now, when they had to detach the rear deck and inject a bit of gearbox oil,
that was up for debate.
Okay, some sort of fluids that is having to be done on and off every 3 pit stops, let's say, just to stay on top of that and make sure they don't lose any more crucial fluids. But the car is still looking good for a podium, and depending on where the end of the race falls and where we are on the pit stop cycle, they might just be out front. I'm sure now those at Meyershank Racing with Kerb Agajanian and those at Cadillac Racing are starting to back time, with probably 4 stints now between now and the end of the race. Well, it'll be 4 and a bit, won't it? And there's that awkward amount because we're looking at 52-minute stints that they do not fit quite clearly evenly into the remaining 240 minutes. The 02 Cadillac is in 3rd with Alex Lynn at the wheel. That car just hanging on to the lead lap by my reckoning. 85 seconds is inside the 1 minute 38 we're currently doing, but Alex Lynn is running the risk here of falling off the lead lap during this sustained run of green flag. Louis Delatraz in the 4th place number 10 car The second ever the Acuras from Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti Autosport. 5th place, the 6th Porsche Penske Motorsport 963. That's back in the hands of Nick Tandy, and Colton Herta took over the BMW M Hybrid V8 number 24 during the last stop. That is in 6th. LMP2 is led by Ben Hanley in the 04, the Orica 07 class, leading for CrowdStrike Racing by APR. TDS Racing's Guido van der Garde, number 35, is in 2nd. Within 3rd place, the Mathieu Vaxivière-driven AF Corsa 88. 4th position, Alex Quinn, PR1 Matheson Motorsports 52. In LMP3, Thomas Morel and the AWA crew, I won't say they've got it in the bag, but they are streets ahead of their nearest rivals, who are now Performance Tech Motorsports. The gap is 8 laps between the 17 and the 38 for Conor Bloom, and that was after dramas for the 33 Sean Creech Motorsport car, which has rejoined in 3rd position, but after over half an hour behind the wall for repair work. Nolan Seagal stayed at the wheel for Sean Creech Motorsport. They're still on course for a podium. GT Daytona, now led by Darren Turner in the Heart of Racing Team Aston Martin number 27, leading from 2 GT Daytona Pro cars, Jordan Taylor and Daniel Juncadella in number 3 Corvette and number 79 WeatherTech Racing Mercedes. 4th in the GTs is the 2nd placed GTD car of Philip Ellis, Winward Racing 57 Mercedes AMG, and in 5th position, Ben Barnacote in the Vassar Sullivan Lexus RCF car 14. He in turns ahead of the Magnus Racing number 44 Spencer Pumpelly car. That was your hourly update, brought to you by VP Racing Fuels, the official coolant of IMSA. Stay frosty.
Well done, Johnny. And I think one of the remarkable things, we thought there'd be many retirements in this race, largely from the GTP class, but we've still got the top 7 cars in the race, the GTP cars. So any sort of pre-race consideration, could a car from the LMP2 class win this race? They haven't got the pace to do so. They're being led on 646 laps by Ben Hanley. That's the CrowdStrike Racing entry, which puts it 22 laps down. So we think not. But anyhow, it was an interesting thing. But the fact is, we started with 61 cars. We've got 52 of them still in the race with under 4 hours remaining. 20 hours on the clock, and the weather's getting better and brighter all the time. The band of clouds that came in over the circuit has largely dissipated, depending what angle you're looking at. As the drivers go up onto the banking out of International Horseshoe, they've got a face full of sunshine, which is great. So it's all looking fair and square, and so much warmer than last year, where conditions were tricky at the very, very best, to be generous, quite frankly. Yeah. And I have, looking again up and down the field of the various manufacturers joining the GTP class. Porsche have had their hiccups. They've still got Nick Tandy, the number 6 car, in which he had a spin in 5th place, as you're mentioning. Sister car way down the order. 16th place. It spent all its time playing catch up, but from so far back, well, they're 38 laps down, there was no chance that they would get close enough to really be in the mix. They had not one but 2 crises that lost them so much time. But it must be said, Felipe Nasr, the Brazilian ex-Formula 1 driver, still pushing very, very hard indeed. 16th overall, lapping marginally faster than Scott Dixon, who's leading the race for Cadillac Racing in the 01.
We're around the track here at Daytona on 107.9 FM, further afield in the US on Sirius XM 207. And remember that if you are in the United States of America, every single round of the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship is live, flag to flag, just as round 1 is this weekend on RS2 IMSA Radio, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels. And if you're outside of America, uninterrupted in vision via the world feed. So imsaradio.com for that. Click the live video tab. So if you're perhaps down under in Australia, if you are in the UK, or perhaps in any part of Europe, basically outside the USA, you can click on the live video tab. That will take you straight through to the live feed, and you can watch as well as listen to our coverage of this year's Rolex 24 at Daytona, the 61st edition of the Rolex 24. I suppose that's not strictly accurate, because in 1972 this was only a 6-hour race. We've had various different durations, but predominantly it has been a 24-hour race, certainly within Rob Lomas's recent memory, stretching back to 1997. They've all been 24-hour races. And we continue on with the latest edition. This is round 1 of the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship for 2023. Johnny Palmer and Bruce Jones, together with Nick Damon, and you have this from the pits.
I have this indeed. Yes, interestingly, the 95 Turner BMW car is coming the Pro car, and they're doing a brake change. Now, normally, what would you expect? Where would you expect the axle for the brakes to be changed?
On the front.
Yes, that's right. God, you're up with these racing cars, aren't you? But no, it's the rear, so they're replacing the rear brakes. Now, of course, this is indicative of the issue of when you run this long without a yellow flag, eventually your brakes run out, and I'm looking at their pads, and they pretty much have run out. So eventually you actually have to do this under very expensive sort of green flag situation. So those rear brakes are being changed now. They've got dry brake system, which means that you can disconnect them without bleeding the brakes, so it's a very effective way of doing it. It still takes a while, and they are drilled in. Of course, the biggest issue is that the old ones are coming off at between 400 and 600 degrees centigrade, so it's not a pleasant job. But so the BMW obviously has quite a bit of rear bias in its braking, and that has worn out those particular set of pads, and they didn't get a yellow flag to self them, so unfortunately they are, I can see on the side of the car it's already ticking up to just under a minute they've been stationed. This, of course, is the Chandler Hull, Bill Oberlin, John Edwards, Bruno Spengler car, and just about finished. So they are fit. They are quicker than the Quick Fit Fitter. Well, they're not actually, because the man on the other side didn't have one of the things he wanted. And there they go. So it was a kind of a, hey Derek, why have you got the tool? I want it. And they had to run around and get it, but they've done it, and pretty effectively, I think, there, but not something you want to do under a green flag situation.
Certainly not at 600 degrees Celsius, or indeed 1100 Fahrenheit for the more local temperature. Do you want to know that in kelvins? 873 kelvins.
I knew that.
I didn't know that, but this little drop-down menu is perfect for any questions related.
I wonder what you were doing, and just as the 27 Aston Martin
I wonder what I was doing.
I want to just throw one to Nick, because I want to know if the MRS GT entry, still listed as not retired, Daniel Frost, they've only got 368 laps on board. Possible engine failure, don't know, there have been a few of those, but it's going nowhere fast. Nick, if you could find out about that one for us, number 43, that's MRS GT Racing. Yes, there we go.
Yeah, okay. I am now apparently just one of your staff, one of your workers. You know, like the man who digs your pond and the man who runs your garden. So that's fine to say. Yes, Mr. Bruce, I'll go up there to number 43.
Very good.
Know your place. That was a superb exit from, I want to say Darren Turner, but we'll get confirmation of that in a moment for car 27. But whereas, you know, in this championship, booting the right foot coming out of the pit stall is actively encouraged, it is pretty much outruled in every other championship. It is Roman De Angelis, actually, who left two massive tram lines of the Michelin variety behind him. But the car was about 90 degrees to the ideal direction of travel as he did so. We've seen plenty of action related to that from the Corvette all race long. And Roman sensibly on cold Michelin tyres, weaving straight away coming out of the International Horseshoe, which he made nowhere near the grass there, and vaguely was on the racing line, and straight away left right on the straight to try and build tyre temp as quickly as possible. The place you lose, I suppose, in the early part of the lap, the tyre temp, is actually on the banking, where the tyres aren't working hard at all. We said you barely need any steering input. And the tyres will probably start to cool down before they're then asked to slow the big lump of a GT car into the Le Mans chicane. That's exactly what car 57 is doing in the hands of Philip Ellis, Winward Racing. Clatter over the curbs still sounds no more comfortable for these cars the further into the race we get, but he makes it through. That chicane becomes more of a straight line every time I look at it, but the curbs through the years have become more and more robust. I remember in the past we've had to actually throw cautions out because of the curb actually breaking up there at the turning point. But a solution to that was found a couple of seasons ago from memory. 0-1, Scott Dixon leading out right. Again, closing in on the 10 of Louis Delatraz and threatening to put it a further lap off the pace.
Talk about being on the pace, constantly supplying great laughs and information. Alan Prosser, the Lanzarote Camel, just referring to Nick commenting about all the people he thinks work for me. He said, is RC Racing now the Ralph part of Ted and Ralph of the Fast Show? It's a British comedy show. Look it up and you'll find Ralph. a very tricky character indeed.
Right, so it didn't take long for Nick to follow instructions.
I just thought in many ways, really, I'm missing out on a major career opportunity, because obviously as I'm getting on a bit, there must be a chance we become Bruce's old retainer, doesn't it? And I could, exactly, in an absolute Ralph way, I can live in a shed at the bottom of his garden and say countrified old anecdotes. I can also tell you the MRS team are not here. They've all left. It's an abandonné pit, and if they had a garage door, they would pull it down. So this one's not going anywhere, Bruce.
Okay, thank you very much, Nick. In fact, as you say that, they've now been listed as an official retirement. They weren't 3 minutes ago.
Only on Nick's instruction.
It's only official when Nick says it's official.
Exactly.
Well, it's a long way back to Germany, and they had to set out as early as possible when they realised they weren't going to get to the end of the race. A real shame, though, for that team's debut at the Daytona 24. MRS are familiar in other championships, of course, that we cover throughout the course of the year on the Radio Show Limited network.
Absolutely so. Right, we've been enjoying, about 10-15 minutes ago now, the sight of Jordan Taylor, one hand around the banking. No less a star than Tiffany Dell. Questions about hands-off steering just being discussed on Radio Le Mans. Do they have power steering? Because when I drove a Porsche 962 there, I was struggling to keep the lock on with 2 hands. And I even locked my right elbow against the chassis occasionally to relieve the strain. Maybe they're just stronger these days.
GT, yeah, well, yeah, it could be that as well. Jordan Taylor, you know, works out every opportunity he gets. They've got ABS because of GT3 cars. I think they've got a little bit of traction control. Power steering, I don't know that. Maybe a little, but I mean, again, on the banking, they are reasonably heavy car. Well, they're 1250, 1300 kilos, but there's so much extra electrical gadgetry on these cars these days. Maybe there is a little bit of steering input as well, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody quite as chilled as that, as we were talking about maybe an hour ago for Jordan Taylor in the number 3 Corvette. That is, remember, a detuned GT-LM car, so it's an old GTE machine which has been made into a GT3, but therefore it still has to have all of the extra devices that a regular GT3 car is found to have elsewhere on the grid.
Well, it's working very well for him because Jordan Taylor still leading GTD Pro, 18th overall, but he's under 10 seconds clear of Danny Juncadella, who's playing catch-up. And suddenly,
a race is broken out.
You suddenly find 6 cars negotiating the very same part of tarmac, going through the Le Mans chicane, where, of course, famously last year, on the final lap, we had a sort-out, if you remember, in the GTD Pro class. But again, suddenly, we were talking about this last night, you could be running in traffic, and suddenly you get a moment where almost no one in front, no one behind, but this is quite the reverse of that, with 4 prototypes and 2 GTD runners all trying to negotiate the same bit of tarmac, fortunately, without anybody coming to blows. Just going back to that point about GTD Pro, Danny Juncadella is closing in all the time in that class, in the number 79 WeatherTech Racing Mercedes, but Jordan Taylor still out front in class by 9 seconds or so for Corvette Racing, the yellow car at home, and we'll see if that can go to another famous win for the team here on home ground at Daytona.
You refer in the sort-out to the epic scrap at the end of last year's race between Mathieu Jaminet and Laurence Vanthoor, of course. Were they both in Porsches? Yeah, that would fit.
Yeah, that would fit. And also afterwards, you know, there was a lot of applause for the fact, no hard feelings between them. They're both racers, and they both would have done the same if they were the driver doing the attacking.
Yeah.
But it was one of those moments. You know, sometimes you think, right, in the final few laps, we'll just wind down. Now, one of the drivers who's been absolutely flying has been the 04 car. Ben Hanley's done a monster stint. It's now being driven by Esteban Gutierrez, but like a greyhound, Nick Damon's gone down there. He's gone from wrinkled retainer to greyhound into blink of an eye, and he's caught up with Ben Hanley.
Ben, very monster stint there, and brought the car not into contention, into the lead when he brought it in.
Yeah, I mean, we've been thereabouts now since probably midnight, I think. We've been around there. Yeah, it's kind of a game of cat and mouse at the moment. Nearly everyone's fuel saving, so yeah, we've got enough to stay where we are. Car's pretty good, especially towards the end of the stint. Feel like we've got good pace. So yeah, pretty happy with it, but we've still got 3 3/4 of an hour left yet, so eyes forward, keep doing what we're doing, just keep ticking them laps away.
Yeah, it's very much a case of just of turning it around. I mean, how physical is it out there? 'Cause obviously it's much warmer than it normally is here, isn't it?
I don't know. It's up and down all the time here, isn't it? Sometimes it's 29 degrees during the day, and other times it's -3 at night. So you never know what you're going to get. But I mean, we've had pretty consistent temperatures really throughout the race. So yeah, it's good.
I mean, it's interesting you point that, because we're getting this rotation of P2 cars. Is there actually anything you can do tactically, or is it just a case of turning laps and hoping the other people make mistakes, or you can go a bit half a second faster?
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to get frustrated in a stint. You know, sometimes you get a stint and you hit the traffic in the right places, and you look like you're amazing, you know. And then another time you get in the car and the car will be exactly the same, but you just hit the traffic in the bus stop, or you just get it coming onto the back straight, or you know, you just get it out of turn one and you've got to wait. So you know, it can make a massive impact to your track position just where you get the traffic. So some fall for you, some don't. It's like that. So it's important not to get frustrated and keep your head down and looking forward.
Great stuff, thanks, Ben. I'm going to be off air for a bit, Johnny, because I've got to go run in the 3:45 at Walthamstow. It's a 440-metre run.
Okay. Well, as long as that was pre-arranged and you've got permission, then we'll allow
Bruce
you
told
to.
Bruce told me I'm his greyhound, so you know, got early keep, haven't I?
That's good dog knowledge, that is.
Oh
yeah.
yes.
We set the rabbit off around the outside of the circuit, then Nick slavering.
If you mentioned Wimbledon, then I would have got it, but of course Wimbledon doesn't exist anymore as a dog track, at least.
Walthamstow is the most famous dog track of all.
Yeah.
That's where all the East End lads make all their deals, down the dogs at Walthamstow. Other accents
I don't think anybody here at Daytona has got a clue what you're talking
about. Very good point. I'll be back in a second.
Yeah, I know they must do greyhound racing somewhere in the States. Certainly horse racing is a massive deal here, as is car racing, so I understand. And we're right in the middle of a stonking car race right now. Unbelievably, we must be about 6 hours away, no, 12 minutes away from having had 6 hours of clear running to this point. And the more we go, the more I'm thinking maybe it will stay green to the finish. Obviously we've had the retirements that we've mentioned, and to total those up, 3, 6, 10, thank you. So 51 cars remain in the race. That's still a good number. I know I am freaking people out by saying, can't believe you've mentioned the G word again, but after 6 hours, what else can you do? 5 hours and 50 minutes of it, and to be honest, well, some people are saying, why can't we have a tempering of the pace now to make it arguably more interesting? Still, well, have we still got 3 cars on the lead lap? Because Alex Lynn was getting pretty close to the end of that 1:38 lead lap of Scott Dixon. Dixie is going to come in fact, at the end of a 28-lap stint. Yeah, so 28 laps. This car is capable of more like 30 laps, Nick. So, again, are they doing a bit of back-timery, to use one of your words?
They could
you can tell us about the stop.
Could back time. What I will tell you is that they're finally letting Scott Dixon out. Sebastien Bourdais gets into the car, slides in, Frenchman. And it's a full set. I think they're giving him all 4 tyres this time. They decided to be a bit stingy with previous tyre allocations. Another tear-off comes off. I don't know how many tear-offs they put on that windscreen, but they're certainly getting through a few of them. The data stick is taken out. The drink spot was refreshed. There is clean-up being done in all the areas that marbles are connected inside the wheel arches, and there's still plenty of time now they finish before the fuel goes off, and that was as quick as it's going to be. The car rolled as soon as it hit the ground, so a great stop.
Very efficient indeed. Almost as if they've gone through those actions 26 times previously, which is exactly what they have done. And the Corvette from the lead of GT Pro, Nick.
Yeah,
yes.
And this is another full service. Luckily, it's not. I have to turn around, like I say, that without getting run over. Out is getting Jordan Taylor. In, I think, is getting Tommy Milner. Pretty certain it's Tommy. I saw him earlier on. 4 tyres, fuel. And then at the end of this will be the most enormous noise as it powers away. But I think I'm a little bit too far away to give you the excitement of that on the microphone.
Now then, You know, I said about certain people maybe wanting a caution. Well, the 20 LMP2 car has left the road in the hands of Anders Fjordbach. I'm trying to work out where on the track that is. It's at the Le Mans chicane. Lake Lloyd in the background, and rear deck has been removed along with damage on the right-hand side. The corner worker down there is looking to try and get a thumbs up from Anders Fjordbach to make sure he's okay, but that's got to be a high-speed entry to that area and has slammed into the tyre wall. Still trying to get confirmation that Anders is okay. Sitting on the left-hand side of the car, so that is the better place to be, of course. Local yellow is being displayed, and it is now a full course yellow. So we were 8 minutes away from making the 6-hour marker, but this could really spice things up. I think, as Ben Hanley had been saying, they were in a fuel race and trying to take it as easy as possible and entering into the 4-hour to go marker. And, well, out of this caution, we could see a very different complexion of this race. But what it will do is reset the whole field, Bruce Jones.
It certainly will. Bear in mind the race-leading 0-1 Cadillac had just come in for a pit stop. Sebastian Bourdais taking that over from Scott Dixon. And this looks like it might be a slightly long period because the medical officials are now alongside the car. The rescue crews alongside, still waiting to see how Anders Fjordbach is going. But that could be the little twist that maybe just slightly hampers the 0-1 that had been leading the race. It was ebbing and flowing between that race-leading Cadillac and Simon Pagenaud's car, the number 60 Meerschaank Racing Acura. Of course, running different sequences, but now the opportunity to jumble it up and maybe for those that hadn't made a pit stop to come in and get some of the fluids and then everything they need on board, and that phrase I like so much, virtual energy, virtual fuel being packed in as well. But for now, we're looking at shots of Anders Fjordbach sitting aboard, talking to the race official, moving around inside the car. But certainly for the high-class racing Orica, the race has run for them. Damaged on the exit of the Le Mans chicane.
Still trying to find out exactly how this has happened, whether there was another car involved or whether it was a lose into the braking area. But if your car is not braking in a straight line, that is always going to be a high speed off. And very gingerly indeed, Anders Fjordbach is now being helped out of the car. Oh, that's not a nice sight at all as it arrives at high speed, unabated speed into the Le Mans chicane. It's only when that happens you get an idea of the approach speed to the left and right flick there. And it just looks like, well, the tail lights came on to indicate that Anders was braking, but the car just did not react, Bruce.
Right, to explain, the chicane is left, right, right, left, and he did the left part fine, but when he went to the right, unfortunately the car turned to the left for the second corner of the 4-corner sequence at the Le Mans chicane and rotated around and went in pretty much 3/4 rear into the tyre wall. Anders is now out of the car, stood there gingerly. You can see him standing up straight to his full height, talking to the medical crews, but that was a big hit against the tyre wall there. And it's going to take a little bit of a while for this car to be towed clear. But the good news is the Dane is out of the car and no doubt being taken off to the medical centre for inspection, because any impact of that sort will have really shaken any driver of any age up. But Anders is young, he's fit, but that was a big hit into the tyre wall. But again, Johnny, the tyre wall did what it needed to do.
So whilst Anders Fjordbach is taken to the medical unit, he'll be taken to the medical centre as well for a check over. We can head to Nick Damon, who's managed to grab Jordan Taylor from his latest GTD stint. Go ahead, Nick.
Jordan, you came in the lead. Does this yellow flag work for you or work against you?
I mean, we were coming in that lap anyway, so I think it worked out. We were saving fuel those last 2 stints, so we went a lap further than the 79, which is good, but yeah, now it's kind of a reset for everyone. We had a nice little gap, I think about 9 seconds there, so it's going to be a tough couple hours here. I don't think we have the outright pace of that 79 car, but I think with our guys executing the pits, calling a good strategy, I think we still have a good shot at it.
I mean, how difficult is it out there? I think we saw some shots of you just going around with one hand. Is it that easy?
No, I mean, you're on the banking for so long, so there's no reason to be stressed on the wheel the whole time. So our Corvette really likes the high banks around here, so it's a nice, smooth ride.
Have you kind of worked out what speed it is, but it'll go around on its own?
We haven't hooked up the cruise control here yet, or the lane assist, but maybe come 2024 with the new Z06 GT3R, we'll have lane assist, cruise control, maybe that matching the cars in front of us. So so we don't have to work too hard.
Fantastic stuff. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Don't use a radar cruise, though, because as you're catching the class leader, it'll just drop off the pace of the car in front of you. That's the last thing you want to be doing. But lane assist on the high banks. It might happen, you know. We might get to a stage with self-drive cars where we're watching, hopefully, another version of the Daytona 24 with... no, that's a stupid idea. No drivers. Crazy.
Johnny, 5 minutes.
I think I will have to leave the room for a period of time. 3.5 hours ago, and we're about to, as I say, reset the field with the pit lane closed straight away as soon as the yellow comes out, but then a flurry in a moment of GTP cars, you would have thought. Although, now you mentioned Bourdais got a stop before the yellow came out. Is that the car, the 0-1?
That's correct, the Racing 0-1.
So 2 laps in, and that's a really nicely timed stop from Cadillac to have preempted the caution and got in before the pit lane was closed. Pagenaud's 21 laps in, so looking to pit in the next, well, with the caution, it could well be another 15 laps before it needed fuel, but you might as well take some on board now. Alex Lynn will also be in need of fuel, regardless of whether it was a yellow or not. So that's fallen really nicely for the 0-2 car. But, Nick, you've just spotted a car entering a closed pit lane.
Yeah, it was 0-2-3, the Ferrari 296. That has just obviously got to take those 5 seconds of fuel. There's nothing you can do. I've just researched the name. Is it Trivozzi competition? I'm mispronouncing that one. Of course, that'll do for me. Oh, no, it's 0-2-3. Sorry, it is the
Triassi.
Thank you very much indeed. I
Triassi.
had someone else's teeth in then for a moment there. Yeah, so we're waiting for a complete set of GTPs. It'll be interesting to see if the 0-1 comes in for a top-up. No one's just 1 lap behind, are they? So no one can just make it back up again, or is there anyone just 1 lap behind?
No, the nearest is Louis Delatraz 2 laps back.
So I assume therefore he will try and get 1 back, because there'll hopefully another one of these unfortunate yellows later on.
And if I could just cut in, I do love the Listeners Collective, and this is backing up Nick in all purposes here. Blur's album Park Life was the front cover the photograph for the album was taken at the Walthamstow Greyhound Racing Stadium. So Nick ahead of the game as ever there in the world of 4-legged friends.
You learn something new every day.
I'm right up with major 1995 album releases.
Right in your sphere of knowledge.
Right in my wheelhouse.
What's a good...
But by the way, when Pop Mars has any song after 2005, that's 3 points I'm not getting. And that's a reference that no one
Uma volta para verde, se prepara aí, a linha por fora, ok? Lembrando que o pit está fechado, ok?
In the Popmaster.
No, he's taking it with him, much as the Cadillacs are all coming in to take a pit stop. Oh, the 2's been blocked by the 1. The 1 obviously taking a very small amount of fuel only. The driver change as well for the 2. Out, in gets Richard Westbrook, out gets Alex Lynn. The 1 limps past him and blocks off the... It's like they're all circular on Monday morning.
Additional set to start, but it's right. Smooth and have a good run.
The 60, the Acura of Meyer Shank, that has had a full service as well, but has not had to repump its gearbox. It's just done the normal things. There is some fluid going into the Cadillac 02. And they've done a full service and driver change.
Alcance o carro 14.
This will be their first chance. That fires up. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I think most of the cars that are a lap down, or multiple laps down, did not come in that time. So I can give themselves a chance to use the 1 on the back. And of course, that very quiet period, then all the GT cars will come in.
Delatraz stayed out, so he gains a lap back. So he was 2 laps down, now only 1. Nick Tandy stayed out, 3 laps back. That's now 2. And Colton Herter stayed out as well. He was a long way back. 6 laps becomes 5. Peter Durrani choosing not to stop either. But surely we'll have to during the caution at some stage, because Durrani, well, was on course for us.
Atenção, prepara. Ok, o pace car entrou. Bandeira verde, tá valendo. Por dentro. Feito, liberado. Tem um carro na linha de dentro. Fica em cima. Tá no meio, trio white, segura. Liberado por dentro, ainda lado a lado. Fica por baixo, tem o carro em cima. Liberado por fora. Ok, liberado. Ixi, quebrou alguma coisa. Minuto 14.083. O carro tá todo quebrado. Vem pra box pra ver se conseguimos fazer alguma mágica pra deixar ele rápido. Pitbox in 10. 5, 3, 2, 1. Right here.